Hello everybody and welcome back to That Adventure Life. If it's your first time here, I'm Dustin.
And I'm V.
And we are coming to you once again from Carlsbad Caverns National Park. I forgot that part in the last one. Today is an exciting video. We are going to do the ranger guided tour of the caverns.
So at the time that we're going, they only have one ranger-led tour that is available, which is the King's Palace tour. King's Palace, is that right? King's Palace.
I believe that's right.
So we were trying to get reservation for it online prior to the time, because you can get your reservation online 30 days before the day that you're going. And we tried to get it on the day of, but like a couple hours later, and it was sold out. So we were heartbroken, very heartbroken. But one of our friends that we met at 𝐌𝐍𝐅𝐎 National Park, and if we haven't sledding, actually told us that you can go in here and get your reservation from here. So like, oh wow, that's awesome. By the way, if you haven't seen the 𝐌𝐍𝐅 sledding video,
is it up here?
Yes.
Is it over there? I think it's
up
over here.
in the right corner. So click on that and check out our super fun sledding video. So back to the King Palace tour, you can actually go into the visitor center and get your tickets from there. It's $8 per person, and if you have the beautiful passes, it's only $8 per person. If not, you do have to pay for like the entrance to the park itself separately from the tour. But it was super cool because we walked in and like, hey, can I get that? And he's like, yes. But get here early. We're here like at 8 o'clock in the morning, so that's when it's open. So get here very early.
And there's already quite a line at 8 o'clock.
And then if your time was conflicting with the self-guided tour that you put prior to it, like we did, the ranger was super cool. He pushes our time earlier to allow us more time to spend inside a big room and everything like that. So it's really, he was super cool about it.
Nice guy.
So yeah, follow us down and we'll show you what the ranger tour is about.
Way down.
Way down. See you guys soon.
As opposed to the big room self-guided tour that we did in the last video, the King's Palace tour will take you to places that you cannot go unless you're on the tour. If you haven't seen our video about the big room self-guided tour, click in the upper corner to see that one because that was a pretty awesome experience as well. Today's adventure begins after we picked our tickets up inside the visitor center. Since it was just about time for our tour to begin, we opted to take the elevator down this time. The good thing is that just outside the elevators, you will also find the only formation at the caverns that you're allowed to touch. After descending about 750 feet into the earth, we got out of the elevator and pretty much immediately found our tour group. After going over the rules and a quick bit of info, we were on our way towards the King's Palace. This tour takes about an hour and a half to complete, and you'll be covering a distance of right around a mile. One thing to take note of is that there are no restrooms, so be sure to take care of that in the visitor center or at the restrooms at the bottom of the elevator. I will say that as amazing as it was exploring the caverns at our own pace, it was pretty neat coming down here with a ranger. They obviously spend a lot of time down here, and it was really cool being able to ask questions about the various formations. We are now entering King's Palace, which is somewhere around 830 feet underground. One thing that was pretty cool about King's Palace is that if you like taking photos and video, it seems like there's a little bit more light down here to help you out. Even with the added light, the GoPros do seem to struggle down here, but we did make it through. Another unique feature of the King's Palace tour is that unlike the big room that has railings on both sides and feels kind of impersonal, the rooms here have no railings as they weave their way through and around stalactites and stalagmites, and you will be weaving your way around large columns and ducking under giant draperies. It has a much more adventurous feel to it, and it really puts you in the shoes of the early cave explorers. There are 4 main rooms that you will be visiting over the course of the tour, and the first one that you see here is the King's Palace. It was pretty crazy because even though the big room that we saw earlier was absolutely amazing, this place still took our breath away. Sitting in this tall, echoey room felt like we were sitting in Mother Nature's own art gallery. Even though there is a scientific reason for the way that each piece is formed, it still felt like it was sculpted by magic. There are several named features in this room, like the Eternal Kiss, which is a stalactite and a stalagmite that almost meet each other in the middle of the room. And besides all the named features, there's just so much going on in this room that it is a little bit overwhelming, and you can spend all day in here. But unfortunately, the tour must go on, and after talking for a little bit, it was time to move on to the next room. There are a couple of tight squeezes and small tunnels along the tour. V's about 5 feet tall, so if you're in the 6-foot range, you're probably gonna have to duck to get through here. The second large room that we will be entering on the tour is known as the Papoose Room, and that is fun to say. Here you will find many more unique formations, and this room has a lot of history to it as well. It turns out that this is one of the rooms that the early explorers made it to. Keep in mind that these early explorers came in through the natural entrance and had hiked over a mile underground with just the light of their lanterns. This was the early 1900s when the first explorers found these caves. They didn't have the luxury of the fancy lighting system that we enjoy today, and they didn't even have flashlights because the first handheld electric flashlight wasn't invented until 1922. Even though it would be quite controversial by today's standards, the first explorers carved their names into the rocks. We always try to talk people on the channel out of carving their names into rocks, but these have been preserved and now it's a little bit of a history piece. We have now reached the third large room along the tour, and it is the Queen's Chamber. This was probably one of our favorite parts of the tour because in this chamber the walkway really gets you close to the formations. There were several points where you either had to duck to go under the rocks or turn sideways to squeeze through them. This is definitely a different experience from the big room, which has a sidewalk about wide enough to drive a golf cart through almost the entire time. After a nice little stroll through an absolutely surreal landscape, the group met back up again and the ranger told us to grab a seat on the wall. At this point in the tour, the ranger asked if we wanted to experience a blackout. Everyone in our group said yes, and the ranger hit the lights. The cave suddenly plunged into complete darkness. The ranger also told us to hold our breath and just listen to the sounds of the cave. This may not sound like much, but it was definitely an experience. You could almost feel the coldness of the cave creeping in. The sound of dripping water seemed a lot louder as it echoed throughout the cave. It was such an interesting experience, and it's not often these days that you're in complete darkness. Finally, the darkness was shattered by a small lantern being lit, and we got a tiny glimpse of how the cave's first visitors saw it. One thing's for sure, it definitely looks a lot different now with all the lighting that the park has installed and the powerful flashlights that we have. As amazing as it was, it definitely gave you an appreciation for modern day technology. I can't even begin to imagine how tricky it must have been for the first explorers to navigate through here with little to no light. And besides navigating, you almost feel bad for those early explorers because they really had no idea just how incredible this place is. They may have had some idea, but they were never able to see it quite like we can today. I'm just amazed that they could find their way back to the exit. We will temporarily be leaving some of the towering rooms behind as we make our way through some smaller corridors on our way to the Green Lake Room. If you didn't see our last video, one thing that is definitely important to bring with you down into the caverns is a jacket. There isn't really any fluctuation of the temperature down here in the caves, and it is pretty much 56 degrees all year long. On the way towards the Green Lake Room, you will be stopping one more time through the King's Palace. And this is pretty cool because this time you will be stopping on the opposite side of the room. This is a nice addition to the tour because it gives you a chance to get close to those distant formations that you saw earlier. We love that some of the formations here feel like one of those ink blot tests. You can see what you want to see. Some of them reminded us of melting candles, chandeliers, Greek columns, flowy fabric, or our favorite, an elephant's butt. Our last stop along the tour was the Green Lake Room. This is another large chamber and one of the few places along the tour that we saw standing water. This was pretty cool because aside from the occasional drip into the pools, the water was very still, and it gave you really neat reflections of the formations above. As we near the end of the video, I think that adding the King's Palace tour to your Carlsbad Caverns itinerary is definitely something that you should consider. We think that at $8 on top of admission, this is quite a bargain. I mean, what can you do these days for $8? And besides it being affordable, it was just really neat getting to check out chambers that would otherwise be off limits. There were guided tours of some of the other chambers inside the caverns, but they were not operating when we visited. Hopefully they'll get back to offering those ones soon so we can check out those caves too. And that is going to do it for the videos from our visit to Carlsbad Caverns National Park, which in our opinion is a must-see. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because that really helps us out. And for all the information about Carlsbad Caverns National Park as well as other awesome adventures, head on over to 𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻.com.